We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land in which the university stands. We respectfully recognise elders past, present and future. Welcome to Newsline.
Brought to you live from the Media Precinct in RMIT Melbourne.
Hello and welcome to Newsline. I'm Eliza Freeman.
And I'm Matt Slocum. Today on the program, we'll be having a look at how the hairdressing industry has been impacted by the cost of living crisis and the use of artificial intelligence in universities.
We'll also have updates across sports, international affairs and weather. But first to today's headlines. A raging fire in Sydney CBD has destroyed a historic building. The massive inferno in Surrey Hills began yesterday afternoon and was only contained by firefighters late last night. New South Wales Police said that now that the fire has been extinguished, an investigation into the fire will be conducted.
Former St Kilda footy star Sam Fisher has been charged with drug trafficking. Police alleged that Fisher was responsible for a 1 kilogram shipment of methamphetamines and 84 grams of cocaine, with a total value of $230,000. He's pleaded not guilty to 8 charges and is scheduled for court early next year.
A teenager has been charged after allegedly firing shots at the Atlantis Beach Baptist College on Wednesday. The 15-year-old brought 2 high-powered rifles to his school near Perth and fired 3 shots. The shooting sparked a lockdown in the school after a classroom was hit, but luckily no one was injured.
Extinction Rebellion protesters have been charged after an incident yesterday morning. Around 100 protesters disrupted traffic for over 20 minutes at Melbourne CBD's Latrobe Street and Queen Street intersection. They were met with a heavy police presence. 6 protesters have since been charged and 2 fined. In other news, a rare pygmy blue whale was spotted off the New South Wales coast yesterday. The Central Coast sighting is the first of its kind and the whale is estimated to be around 25 metres long. Chris Dick used his drone to capture the rare sight. Now to our first story. Hairdressing in Australia are one step closer to hanging up their scissors as the cost of living crisis continues. The increase in day-to-day expense has seen less people at the salons and more hairdressers at home. Reporter Tiana Condren has the story.
First, it was petrol, and then lettuce leaves, and now hairdressing. The cost of living crisis isn't only affecting rentals and groceries, with hairdressers now struggling to keep the doors open.
Interest rate rises and the fact that inflation in Australia has risen to a staggering 7.8% means Aussies are making cuts and forgoing their regular hair maintenance.
Everything is getting more expensive, but I feel like lots of services especially have been going up and up in prices.
Clients are coming in and asking for less services or trying to extend their appointments out. Traditionally, your blondes would be 6 to 8 weeks. They're now going 10, 12, 14.
Many hair salons are small or family-owned businesses and say the government isn't considering them when making decisions.
Decisions are often made for businesses that are much bigger than ours. And so I think overall, if I was going to answer that question, it's more that we're not overlooked when it comes to decisions that could affect our industry in any way, that we're not overlooked, that we're always considered as a small business and not forgotten.
Sadly, salon closures and dismissals are becoming all too common.
I've seen firsthand friends of mine who've been offering redundancies to some staff because there isn't enough clientele to keep them busy in the salon. So yeah, it is happening across the board.
It will be interesting to see what measures are put in place by government to aid in this cost of living crisis. Tiana Condren, RMIT Newsline.
We're heading to a short break now. Coming up, we'll be hearing from RMIT's sports celebration of the LGBTQIA+ community. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Newsline. Wednesday, May 17th is International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia and Transphobia. It brings awareness to discrimination, aiming to promote a world of peace and respect. As Shu reports, RMIT celebrates Ida Hoppin by organising a fun day of inclusive social sports.
RMIT, a Becky urban square, was awash with rainbow flags and smiling faces on May 17th. RMIT Sports celebrate Ada Hobby Day with an afternoon of social, inclusive sport to raise awareness of the violence and discrimination experienced by LGBT within our community.
What is Ada Hobby Day, you ask? Good question. It's the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersexphobia and Transphobia. It's celebrated every year on May 17th to commemorate the World Health Organization removing homosexuality as a mental disorder in 1990. And here we are here to celebrate, reflect and take action on LGBTQIA rights.
Students are invited to join in the free activities and games such as ultimate frisbee, lacrosse and hockey from 12:30 to 2 p.m. on the day. By flying the rainbow flag, the event aims to acknowledge LGBT as an integral part of the local community and publicly stand up against discrimination. The recent nature of the LGBT human rights movement means that prejudice is still prevalent around the world.
My top tip for being an ally is just being an active listener. Just reach out to those around you who may feel uncomfortable in certain spaces to see how they're going. Just even simply asking, are you okay? Do you need me to do anything? Can be incredibly supportive.
In 2023, RMIT is launching its Inclusion, Diversity, Equity and Access Framework, which sets out RMIT's ambition to be inclusive by design, everyone, everywhere, all the time. This includes all the participants in the RMIT sports projects and events.
At RMIT Sport, we're all about inclusivity, and all of our community clubs do an exceptional job by leading the way in pride in sport, and we're absolutely so proud of what they do for us.
Shu for RMIT Newsline.
And now we have Maddie Lobruth joining us for international news.
The Russian conflict has taken a turn with the Kremlin planning to deploy tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. This is the first time Russia has planned to deploy such weapons since the 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union. The US has denounced the deployment plan but said their movements would not change as there is no indication Russia was preparing to use the nuclear weapon. In Japan, a man has been arrested after 4 people were killed in a stabbing and shooting attack in Nakano City. The alleged attacker is said to have stabbed a woman before shooting dead 2 policemen. A 4th death was later reported. It is still unclear how the 4th person died. In South Carolina, Governor Henry McMaster has signed off on a new abortion law, making abortion legal only within the first 6 weeks of gestation, compared to the previous 22. The Fetal Heartbeat and Protection from Abortion Act was previously signed in 2021, but was struck down by the Supreme Court. The legislation will be enforced effective immediately, and anyone caught in breach will be fined $10,000 and could face up to 2 years imprisonment. Doctors performing the illegal abortions will have their licence revoked. Moving to Europe, a search for Madeleine McCann clues has come to an end after materials have been found and handed in to local authorities. Teams from the United Kingdom, Germany and Portugal had been searching for a reservoir in Algarve, Portugal, after receiving tip-offs. The reservoir, just 50 kilometres from where the McCanns were staying, was believed to be a haunt for the prime suspect named in the case, Christian Brockner, a convicted German sex offender. He has denied any involvement in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. In Amsterdam, a public marijuana ban is beginning to be enforced throughout the famous red light district. Following years of complaints from locals, the city is now handing out €100 fines for public smoking.
So what exactly is the change? I thought small amounts of marijuana were illegal in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's right. So possession of small amounts of marijuana is legal in the Netherlands, so up to 5 grams on the person. But yeah, the change is basically just banning people from smoking in public on the streets.
Okay, and how did this change come about?
Yeah, so this change has been, I suppose, over the last few years, there has been a real interest in kind of changing the attitude towards tourism in Amsterdam, since a lot of tourism has been premised on the sex and drug industry there. So yeah, it's just kind of changing the image of Amsterdam and why people are going there.
And can you tell us more about who exactly was pushing for the change?
Yeah, so the Mayor of Amsterdam is really driving these changes. So yeah, alongside this ban of public smoking of marijuana, there's also been changes to how long bars can be open or when people can enter the red light district. So if you haven't been in there, you can't come in after 1 a.m. So effectively kind of like lockout laws.
Okay, I understand you were actually in Amsterdam last year. What was that like?
Yeah, so I was a tourist in Amsterdam myself last year, walked through the red light district, and I was surprised it was so busy. Just crowds and crowds of people and all kinds of people. So people of all different ages just kind of walking around, yeah.
And having been there yourself, obviously, can you sort of see how this public marijuana ban might change things?
Yeah, I suppose it would change kind of the vibe on the streets. Also, like, I guess because it's so densely populated in those areas with a lot of tourists, I guess it is a bit undesirable for people to be smoking in those areas. So restricting it to particular locations would definitely have an effect, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. During the past 3 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused more than a global shutdown. In the car industry, drivers across Victoria are experiencing a price surge in second-hand vehicles. But as Michelle Tongo reports, this increase has done more damage to many young drivers on the road.
Like many young drivers, buying a car was the only thing Lorraine Truma was looking forward to the most.
I was literally counting down the days until I could get my car. That's how excited I was.
But unfortunately, that dream had to wait, as prices for second-hand cars has reached an all-time high in the state.
Car buyers across Victoria are experiencing a price surge of second-hand cars, leaving many of our young drivers struggling to purchase their own vehicle.
I was really struggling, and a lot of the cars that were under 10,000 were old cars. They had a lot of kilometers.
If you're a student, college student, just starting out a career and you're not sitting on savings because you're just starting out, it cuts you out of the market.
This follows from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, as countries around the world are experiencing a shortage on brand new cars.
According to data from Moody Analytics, there was a 65% increase in the first 3 months of 2022 compared to prices in 2019. Dealer principal of Hello Motors, Shakur, says car prices in his dealership have risen by at least 30% within the past 2 years.
The demand was always there, and especially the backlog, everything skyrocketed, and you can see the result obviously in today's date.
This has caused many students and new drivers to avoid buying cars or to seek financial help.
I think the effect it can sometimes have is sometimes you feel a bit behind with other people. Like, while other people have gotten their cars, have bought their cars, you're still kind of like depending on your parents financially.
With no signs of a decrease in the future, many Victorians are hoping that these prices won't drive any more of our young drivers away. Michelle Tonko, RMIT Newsline.
3, 2, 1.
The big design market is back for another year of local crafts and artisanal goods. But this year, they're doing things a bit differently. We're crossing to reporter Ruby Littler, who's down at Carlton Gardens. What's going on, Ruby?
Yeah, hi Matt and Eliza. I'm down here at Carlton Gardens and people are lining up to get into these markets. So instead of the normal lineup that happens in December, they've decided to start a new event called Almost Winter to prepare Melburnians for those colder months. There's going to be over 200 stalls with unique different artisanal goods from homewares, clothing, from artists from New Zealand and Australia. An RMIT alumnus has created a big gaping art piece of 10 metres that falls across the entire market that you can see while you're shopping around. And similar to every year, there's going to be a big focus on sustainable and ethically sourced products.
Okay, and how long has the big design market been running for, Ruby?
Yeah, so it's been running for the past 10 years. It started in 2012. They had a bit of a shutdown during COVID, like everyone else, for the past 3 years, but they're back up and running, and they've started this new event because of popular demand and because people are really interested in supporting local designers.
And Ruby, why do you think it's important to support events like this?
Yeah, so especially in this fast fashion economy where everyone's buying products that often degrade rather quickly, it's important to prioritise and focalise different sustainable products. And all the different 200 market stalls in here their items are traceable, and you can trace where they come from and the origins, and rest assured that you're purchasing from ethical brands.
Yeah, great. What stores will you be looking out for?
Yeah, so there's heaps of I was wandering around before, and there's all these DIY kits that you can do, from tufting and crocheting and ceramics. So it's really encouraging not only you to purchase an item to keep, but also create a product and become creative yourself. So I don't know, I might be checking out some of those stores because that sounds pretty cool.
If I'm feeling hungry after shopping all day, is there any food available?
Yeah, so it wouldn't really be a Melbourne event if there weren't heaps of food vans going on. So you've got pizza and pasta, and then bao buns and dumplings. You could get a cozy hot chocolate from Morph Hot Chocolate, which is based in North Melbourne, or a more boozy beverage like gin and whiskey and some cocktails as well.
Thanks, Ruby. Now we're heading to a break. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Newsline. I'm Matt Slocum. In a world where artificial intelligence is revolutionizing education, ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's cutting-edge creation, has garnered over 100 million users, now providing students with unprecedented access to knowledge and virtual mentors. Just how are universities navigating the challenges that have arisen as a result of AI's continuing development? Shay Parasay reports.
Artificial intelligence, with its immense capabilities and potential, is permeating every aspect of our lives, and the realm of education is no exception. With innovative AI technologies like ChatGPT, universities are navigating uncharted territory, embracing the transformative power of machine learning and natural language processing. ChatGPT, the cutting-edge creation by tech company OpenAI, is continuing to take the world by storm, with a staggering 100 million users now relying on the platform's advanced AI capabilities. It took the platform a mere 5 days to amass 1 million users, a milestone that took social media juggernaut TikTok 9 months to reach.
No longer limited by traditional classroom resources, students can now access a wide range of virtual mentors and assistants, expanding their knowledge on an array of subjects. These developments are something RMIT business student Jonas Walsh is taking full advantage of as he continues his studies.
Yeah, I'd definitely say I use ChatGPT. It's more of a research tool for me as opposed to getting immediate answers, but if I'm trying to research something and sometimes Google isn't very helpful, so I just go to ChatGPT. It's just so easy.
While it may be extremely beneficial for university students to get an extra hand on completing work and assignments, how does that compare to the situation universities and their professors and teachers have been put in at the hands of ChatGPT's emergence?
I think there'll be a slightly messy round of assessment this semester.
Associate Professor at Monash University Tim Fawns says that institutions are still learning to adapt to the ever-changing landscape of AI in an educational context.
It's moving too quickly for us to understand how we're going to deal with it. So one of the challenges is how to change the way we assess. And if we change the way we assess, we need to change the way we teach to align with that. And it's very difficult to do that on the fly.
Universities, alongside their students, stand at the forefront of this transformative era, where they must navigate the evolving landscape shaped by the development of such a powerful force. I'm Shay Parisi, reporting for RMIT Newsline.
We are now being joined by our reporter James Dowling, who will be chatting to writer and journalist Richard King about the increase in AI. He's the writer behind the monthly's Machine Learning and his recent book, Here Be Monsters, which explores sociology in the digital age.
Thanks, Eliza. Hi, Richard. Thanks for joining us. What prompted you to start writing on AI's role in education? Your writing mostly focuses on the release of ChatGPT, but were you passionate about the subject before then?
About technology broadly, yes. So my book, Here Be Monsters, which your colleague was kind enough to mention, is about technology in the broad. So it's not only about AI, but about biotechnology, nanotechnology, new psychotropic drugs, that kind of stuff. So it's about how we as a species are responding and might respond to what are some very transformative technologies that are now coming into being, with AI being probably the most advanced of the lot.
Right. Do you think that there need to be measures taken by universities to sort of adapt their content to the advent of AI, as well as like advancing systems against academic fraud?
Yes, we have to do something about it. Someone in your report just then mentioned that it was messy, and that's a good adjective to use. It's certainly been messy. Generally speaking, people are falling into one of two categories at the moment. There's what you might call the rejectionists, who are the ones who are saying, look, students just can't use this in their assessments. It's antithetical to what we're trying to do within this institution and so on. And then there's your sort of incorporators, so the ones who say, okay, it can be used as a tool. I have to say I'm probably more lined up with the rejectionists than the incorporators, because I'm not sure the incorporators have a terribly good idea of what they're trying to incorporate, but perhaps we'll come on to that.
Right, with that idea of incorporation, you have focused a lot on how OpenAI programs have been abused, but do you think there can be value for them as a research tool, as mentioned, or do you think it's mostly just a tool for pure regurgitation?
Well, what kind of abuse would be my question. So at the moment, a lot of the media has focused on things like accuracy and bias and that sort of thing. And there are problems with accuracy and bias as regards ChatGPT and its equivalents, but all bodies of knowledge, all data sets have biases and have inaccuracies, but, whether they're inaccuracies of focus or whether they're inaccuracies that relate to mistaken assumptions. We can all itemize a number of things that we used to believe but no longer believe. Okay, so all bodies of knowledge have inaccuracies. Yes, there are particular problems around that with ChatGPT, but the bigger problem for educational institutions is to do with agency. There was a student, I think his name was Jonah, talking in your report just then about how he uses ChatGPT as a tool, not in order to write his essays, but as a tool. Well, you can't separate the conclusion of an essay, say, from the processes that one goes through in order to put that argument or that thesis together. So that's the challenge, and that's why I think it's very difficult to see how this could be incorporated into assessment design, because I'm not clear on why this interface, which is just really a tool which synthesizes, if you like, human-like responses to our prompts and questions on the basis of its massive data set, is superior to the data set itself. And unless the student is going into the data set and finding out for herself or himself where the information is, assimilating that information, weighing the information, then they're not going to become critical thinkers with good cognitive skills. So that seems to me to be the major challenge of ChatGPT. So no, I don't think it can, at the moment, can be incorporated into assessment design, at least. But how we're going to deal with it, that's another question. And I don't have any fantastic answers there.
Right, with that line between the system and the software that's looking through that data set, you've described ChatGPT as sort of a black box system before. Do you think that the clarity, if people had the clarity on the workings of this software, it would make them more resilient in how they sort of engage with it?
Maybe, but one could only appreciate that very, very broadly and simplistically, I think. I mean, if you saw how it was going about his business, your brain would explode, because it is nothing like a human mind, and it is doing things that the human mind can't do. Just, if I may, I'll say roughly what it's doing. What it's not doing is thinking in any sense at all. Okay, so what it is really a sort of autocorrect on steroids. So it's looking at your question, it's dividing it, it's sort of setting it out as a number of algorithms, and then it's synthesizing a response, which is, as I said before, human-like on the basis of your question, and it hopes that what it comes out with, or we hope that what it comes out with, will intersect somewhat with reality, and it seems to be quite good at doing that. But it's not thinking, okay? So if the university wants to continue, or the education sector wants to continue to flatter itself that what it's doing is creating thinkers, is creating critical thinkers, why would we incorporate a non-thinking tool that appears to be thinking on the basis of its data set into our systems rather than the data set itself? It seems to me really quite strange, and there's a kind of a fatalism around in the sector at the moment, which sort of says, well, it's here now, so but we have to get used to it. But it hasn't been out for long. And
so I think that's all the time we have. But thank you so much, Richard. It means a lot.
Worries. Thank you. Cheers.
Many Australians are being lured into betting through advertising from Australia's multi-billion-dollar gambling industry. Gambling advertising has caused controversy amongst the public due to its impact on people's emotional well-being. Reporter Raphael Gerster has the details.
As Australians are losing $25 billion a year through placing bets, advertising from Australia's gambling industry has been facing scrutiny. Recent data from the Australian Gambling Research Centre shows 34% of people increased their betting after being exposed to wagering advertising. Sports betting agencies have played a prominent role in the promotion of gambling, spending more than $200 million a year advertising their products.
There's a less sort of obvious promotion where commentators in games might talk about the odds that are being offered by particular wagering companies during the match, and really starting to normalise the sort of investment in sport by putting a bet on it rather than just enjoying the kind of thrill of the skill and the competition.
Many Australians want to see stricter regulation, with 47% advocating for restriction on betting advertising across all social media platforms. The desire for more action stems from the negative mental health impacts of gambling advertisements.
I'm no longer a gambler, and I haven't gambled since 2014, but those ads are annoying to me. For someone who's trying to recover from gambling harm, is probably one of the worst things that they can see.
The Labor Party has recently announced it will make it illegal for betting companies to allow people to use credit cards while gambling online. There is the hope that this policy will protect vulnerable Australians by limiting their exposure to gambling products.
Once you start betting with credit, you're in a really serious spiral. So if you're not allowed to do that, if you can't actually do that, then there's a reasonable chance that you might be able to sort of organise your affairs and get on top of the habit. So that's a really big step. But it's probably not going to have a lot of help for those people who are already in diabolical trouble, but it will certainly stop a number of people, I think, from getting into that trouble in the first place.
While the banning of credit cards marks progress, it is one of the many steps Australia is expected to take to ensure that less money is lost from gambling. Raphael Gerster, RMIT, Newsline.
We're going for a short break now. Stay with us.
Welcome to the Roundup. I'm Dylan Beaumont.
And I'm Lily Cristanto. In the Roundup, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest stories across arts, tech, and political cartoons. But first, let's check out what's making news around the world.
The New York Times homepage features multiple stories on the brutal US Special Forces training courses, one of which recently resulted in a death. The paper also writes about American far-right anti-government organisation Oath Keepers, whose leader Stuart Rhodes has been sentenced to 18 years in prison for seditious conspiracy and other crimes in relation to the January 2020-21 attack on the US Capitol.
In Indonesia, the Jakarta Post reports the Bank of Indonesia aims to keep the rupiah stable as it braces for economic fallout from unresolved debt ceiling negotiations in the United States. The paper also features stories on the dangers of online job searching and how it may lead to many workers falling victim to human trafficking.
In Algerian news, notable member of Algeria's opposition movement, Karim Tabou, has been arrested for the first time since his imprisonment in 2020. New legislation has been passed by the Algerian government to ban media sources from receiving material and funding from foreign organisations. And Algerian journalist Hussein El-Kadi is being given 5 years in prison for international financing of his business, 3 of those years to be served in prison.
The Japan Time reports the son of City Assembly Chief in central Japan has been taken into custody after allegedly killing 4 people, including 2 policemen. The paper also reports retail group 7 & I has won a proxy fight against a US fund, ending months of conflict over business strategy at the operator of the 7-Eleven convenience stores.
To Norway now, the largest warship in the world has arrived on Norwegian shores for a visit to symbolise solidarity among NATO allies in Europe. The newspaper also reports locals have rediscovered a white beluga whale who was seen first in 2019, with officials warning people to maintain distance and to be careful. And millions of citizens are celebrating Constitution Day in their country by dressing in classy and vibrant outfits.
In the United Kingdom, The Guardian reports leaked documents show more than 3,000 asylum seekers could be detained and deported from the UK every month to enforce a flagship asylum bill. Other news includes 2 former Metropolitan Police officers admit their 3-year plot to share child sex abuse images with a serving senior officer. And the UK has been accused of wrongly labelling refugees and trafficking victims as criminals in a report from European representatives.
And that's it for today's Front Page World News.
To Tech Now, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has met with heads of artificial intelligence companies to discuss potential risks. We're joined now by our tech reporter, Natalie Anderson. Natalie, we've heard a lot about AI software over the last few months. What is Mr. Sunak discussing?
Well, hello there, Lily. Mr. Sunak met with the chief executive of the biggest artificial intelligence companies to discuss how to avoid a catastrophe. This discussion was about the safety measures and actions to manage what Mr. Sunak called the existential risks. OpenAI's chief executive, Sam Altman, made calls this week for world leaders to establish an international body similar to the International Atomic Energy Agency to help limit the speed that the technology can be developed with.
This is interesting timing considering that ChatGPT launched its app last week. Why has the British Prime Minister chosen to meet with the big guns of AI at this time?
Yes, it's certainly interesting timing, Dylan. Last week, ChatGPT launched its mobile app, as you mentioned, originally in the US, and this has yet since been launched in 11 more countries, including Europe, South Korea and New Zealand. Also in the United Kingdom's Question Time last week, a Labour MP asked Chloe Smith, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, asked a question about 10 Downing Street and their dealings with AI.
A fully developed regime of electoral law that already accounts for election offences such as false statements by candidates. But we are setting out, in addition to that existing regulation, an approach on AI that will look to regulators in different sectors to be able to apply the correct guidance, whilst we also add a central coordinating function that will be able to seek out risks and deal with them.
It's important to note that the European Parliament has already voted in favour for adopting laws to protect people from the risks of AI.
In other news, Netflix has cracked down on their password sharing in Australia. Natalie, we heard this was announced a few months ago. What's changed since then?
Netflix will only allow people to share an account if they live in the same household or pay an extra fee. This will create a new phase in the evolution of streaming services. The streaming service will ask people using someone else's account to get their own account or stay on the service as a paid extra member at approximately $7.99 per person.
I can imagine users won't be very happy about this. Will other streaming services like Stan and Disney Plus follow suit, Natalie?
That's a good question. Now, Romain Labato, an associate professor of RMIT of Media and Communications, recently spoke with ABC, and he said that he could see other streaming services like Stan follow Netflix's lead in the near future.
Thanks for joining us, Natalie.
And now to a roundup of today's news in arts. Last night, Federal Arts Minister Tony Burke appeared on the ABC to speak about a new government body called Music Australia. The organisation will be dedicated to supporting the Australian music industry on both the local and global stage. We're joined today by arts reporter Faith Bajaya. Faith, what does the policy promise to Australian music professionals?
Yeah, so the Music Australia organisation falls under the new national cultural policy called Revive, which started early January this year. The Arts Minister for Australia, Tony Burke, has said that the new policy aims to provide more standards in improving a safer workplace within the Australian music industry.
With the issues that were raised by people like artists like Jaguar Jones about not having safe workplaces in the music industry, we want to have something for all the creative workplaces that is about making sure we've got standards and that workplaces are safe. And that can be safe from forms of discrimination, safe from forms of exploitation as well.
With being given more than $69 million in funding by the federal government, there will also be more access to resources for musicians that can help provide opportunities in boosting their careers.
We know that the music industry was one of the hardest hit by the pandemic, and the Arts Minister also spoke about how streaming has impacted musicians in particular and made it more difficult for them to sustain an income. How will this new policy help musicians to face these new challenges in the industry?
Yeah, so it is a way to help more musicians get recognition and get their name known out there. With the funding, the government is aiming to expand opportunities to those currently involved in the music industry or even looking to become involved in it. This will be seen across both the contemporary music industry and also education. With the funding, the aim is to provide access for musicians to learn more about business and management skills and also include more songwriting and recording workshop initiatives in schools. Now on to our next story. Melbourne's digital art gallery, The Loom, has announced its next exhibit, which will be a showcase of Indigenous art. The gallery has attracted more than 1 million visitors since it opened 2 years ago, with exhibits of work by Vincent van Gogh and Claude Monet. The new show is titled Connection and will open on June 23rd at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. Faith, what can we expect from this new exhibit? Yeah, so this is the first time that a Loom exhibition will be focusing primarily on Indigenous art and music, and it's a combination of both past and present. And the past was seeing Impressionist art from Claude Monet as well as some of Van Gogh's classic oil paintings. And the exhibition will showcase the talent of over 110 Aboriginal artists and musicians with more than 550 artworks being displayed. So you can expect a different take on Indigenous culture. Since the Loom opened, it has been described as a unique gallery experience, unlike anything visitors might have encountered before. How does this exhibit differ from the traditional representation of Indigenous art? So since Loom is Melbourne's first only digital art gallery, it creates a different kind of atmosphere for viewers. Loom is able to provide a more immersive experience through its open space, creating a sense of movement, which is basically asking visitors to engage with the art itself. The exhibition will include Indigenous music and allow visitors to walk around in a large space surrounded by the screens and all the art, of course. Traditionally, art galleries have displayed paintings hanging on just walls, so Loom will definitely provide a more immersive experience. Thanks for speaking with us, Faith. That's all for today's Arts Roundup.
Joining us at the desk, we have political reporter Taylor Oates to discuss some recent cartoons depicting the current political climate. Taylor, what do you have for us today?
Well, the first image I've got for you guys is by artist David Rowe. He depicts Anthony Albanese receiving the call from Joe Biden cancelling on his trip to Australia. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida of Japan and US President Joe Biden were all due to travel to Australia for the Quad Leaders Summit, but ultimately the trip was cancelled. You can see frames on his desk showing the faces of the leaders with Biden's face down. We can see a very upset Anthony Albanese playing cool to the US leader. Biden ultimately cancelled his trip to Australia and issued an apology, stating he would not be able to attend due to looming financial issues back in the States.
All right, so that's the first cartoon. You've also brought us a second image that's more specifically depicts the current financial situation in the US. Can you give us a bit of context for those of us who don't know a lot about the story?
Absolutely. Well, the US currently is facing a debt ceiling crisis, which affects the money given to the US government to borrow for paying services such as Social Security, Medicare, and the military. In this cartoon by political cartoonist R.J. Matson, Biden is negotiating with the Republican Party leader to raise that debt ceiling. If no agreement is made by June 1st, US will either need to go into default or deepen its debt. Biden does not want to go into default. He says default is off the table, but the Republicans are unwilling to budge on raising that debt ceiling. So you can see that when he says, so is everything else. Files of Medicare, Medicaid, taxes, military, and Social Security are scattered around. These are part of the government that's affected. The ceiling is broken and there's a massive looming weight over their heads. It's symbolic of the urgency of the situation and the looming outcomes from this debt or defaulting.
We'll continue to monitor this story as that deadline approaches. Negotiations continue with no official announcement made as of yet. The next cartoon you've got for us depicts the 2023-24 federal budget through the use of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Now, there's a lot going on in this cartoon. Can you walk us through it?
Absolutely. This cartoon by Megan Herbert has Peter Dutton as Papa Bear, claiming it is too big. He's publicly criticised the rise in job seeker payments. Then you got Adam Bant as Mama Bear, saying it's too small. He said the budget has betrayed renters. We've got job seekers, people doing it tough. Anthony Albanese as Baby Bear. He's saying it's just right and he's in support of the Labor budget. Goldilocks is our treasurer, Jim Chalmers, and he is stirring the pot. He's been criticised by the public for retaining the surplus for the sake of being in the black. The public is represented by the single mother and children standing outside with no food as the bears feast.
Thank you, Taylor, for giving us an insight into those political cartoons. That's our roundup for today. Thanks to our reporters Natalie Anderson, Faith Bajaya and Taylor Oates. For the roundup, I'm Dylan Beaumont.
And I'm Lily Cristanto. We're going to take a short break now, then we'll be back with more stories and the latest in weather.
Victorian towns are often better with getting tourists into their area. However, many are turning to art for an economic boost. In the small farming town of Wedderburn, the main street has been decorated in spectacular murals which have put Wedderburn back on the map. Patrick Doyle with the story.
In the early 1850s, Wedderburn was a thriving hub of activity, like so many of Victoria's country towns have become throughout the Gold Rush era. Nowadays, Wedderburn is only a passing through township for those travelling the colder highway heading north. Many shop fronts are vacant or for sale. However, it isn't all doom and gloom throughout the streets. The bird's eye view murals have added colour and excitement to the Wedderburn streetscapes.
Wedderburn had its streetscape done, and what we decided to do was create an open air gallery. And so what happened with the community, we identified 5 walls within the community, and one of those walls being the Uniting Church, which has actually created a lot of interest on art trails and Facebook trails and all that sort of thing.
Like so many towns here in central Victoria, Wedderburn is yet another town to utilise the amazing brilliance and artistic ability of mural artists to bring the town back to life.
What we wanted to be able to do is have a really good community project right in the centre of our town, which then creates economic stimulation.
The town aimed to take advantage of the neighbouring Silo Art Trail, which includes nearby towns Nullawul and Sea Lake.
So it's a big picture that we looked at, and we've done it differently, and we've done it with birds that are unique to our area, and some of them are endangered species.
The murals have revitalised the area, and Robin insists there is always more to see and do in our hometown than many other country towns.
When you come, there's lots happening in Wedderburn.
And where is the best place to get all the information?
The visitor centre is your first port of call because it's a local, and they can tell you all the different places, nooks and crannies where you wouldn't normally see.
Patrick Doyle for Newsline.
Week 2 of Sir Doug Nicholas round kicks off tonight as Carlton take on the Swans at the SCG for the annual Marngrook Clash. Annie Island joins us now.
Thanks, Eliza. So Marngrook translates to game ball, and it was an Indigenous game which was first played in Victoria's Western District. It is believed to have played a role in the development of Australian football, and tonight the Marngrook game will recognise the First Nations peoples and cultures. Carlton have recalled Tom de Koning for the clash at the expense of Jack Silvani, while Sydney Swans have brought in Tom Hickey in the ruck, Lewis Melican for his first game since 2021, and pressure forward Sam Wicks. It promises to be an entertaining battle, with the Swans midfield with the likes of Chad Warner, Errol Goulden, Luke Parker and Isaac Heaney taking on Carlton's Paddy Cripps, Adam Chera and Sam Walsh. Carlton are coming into the game on a 3-game losing streak, sitting precariously on the ladder in 11th position. If they're to play finals this season, tonight is a must-win game, and with games to come against Carlton and Essendon in the coming week, it's not getting any easier for them. That kicks off tonight at 7:50 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
And what else can we expect from the Sir Doug Nicholas round this weekend?
So as part of the celebrations, footy will return to the top end for the first time this year as the Gold Coast Suns host the Western Bulldogs at TIO Stadium. Darwin-born Gold Coast players Joel Jeffrey and Ben Long have been recalled to the side and will play in front of friends and family on Saturday night. On Sunday afternoon, Collingwood will host North Melbourne in front of a sold-out Marvel Stadium as they celebrate Steel Sidebottom's 300th game. Sidebottom is the 101st AFL player and the 3rd Collingwood player to notch up the accolade. Mason Cox will also play his 100th game and for someone who didn't know what AFL was until he was 23, it's a pretty big accolade.
Thanks, Annie. And with the Voice to Parliament referendum ongoing, has the AFL shown any support?
So last week at the launch of Sir Doug Nichols round, AFL CEO Gillon McLachlan and the AFL Commission said that they will endorse the Voice to Parliament. The AFL Commission statement read, "The AFL proudly supports the recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Australian Constitution through the Voice to Parliament." Rugby Australia also recognised the Voice last week, saying let's get it over the line. The NRL, Tennis Australia, Football Australia and the Australian Olympic Committee have also recognised the Voice.
Thank you, Annie.
It's time now for the sport, with reporter James Dowling joining us for the latest updates.
Thanks. The Denver Nuggets have advanced to their first NBA Finals appearance in franchise history. This comes after completing a 4-0 sweep over the Los Angeles Lakers. The La Liga is facing backlash and criticism over their inaction towards the racial abuse of Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. The abuse occurred during an away match at Valencia. In the NHL, the Florida Panthers are heading to their first Stanley Cup Finals in 27 years after a sweep of the favoured Carolina Hurricanes. With the game set for June 3rd, the Panthers' opposition is yet to be determined. And Swedish tennis player Mikael Ymer has been disqualified from the Lyon Open after destroying his racket on the umpire's chair platform following a disagreement. Fines and further suspensions are being discussed by the ATP organisation. This has been the Newsline Sports Report. Now to the weather from Melbourne and around the country. In Melbourne, partly cloudy today with some strong westerly winds this evening and a top of 15. Now tomorrow's forecast for Australia's capital cities. It's going to be sunny in Sydney with a chance of morning frost in the outer west, some light winds and a top of 18. Also be clear in Canberra, cooler in the morning, with a low of -4 and a max of 13 throughout the day. Also sunny in Brisbane with no chance of rain and a low of 7 and a top of 22. Now Darwin will be mostly sunny in the city and outer Darwin area, a bit warmer than the other capital cities with temperatures ranging from minimum of 20, maximum 31. Perth will be sunny, low of 5 and top of 19. To Adelaide now with a very high chance of rain, minimum of 10, maximum 17. And Hobart we have a medium chance of rain, most likely in the late afternoon and evening, low of 9 and a top of 16. Back in Melbourne, looking to the week ahead, high chance of rain for Sunday and Monday and a medium chance of rain for the rest of the week. Be ready for some cold days on Sunday, top of 15, followed by another top of 15 on Monday, then just a little bit warmer for Tuesday and Wednesday with a top of 18. Might not rain tomorrow, but be ready for a wet Sunday and Monday with 90% and 70% chance of rain predicted. That's all for the weather. I'm James Dowling. Back to you, Matt and Eliza.
That concludes Newsline for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Matt Slocum.
And I'm Eliza Freeman. Have a good night.